DJ, you go crazy.
I hear you talk about Marcus Garvey a lot, so I went and picked this book up. It's called Philosophy and Opinions of Marcus Garvey, and it talks a lot about the Pan-African studies and history. So Pan-Africanism come from Marcus Garvey teachers? Okay.
Pan-Africanism predates Marcus Garvey.
Okay.
In fact, Major Dr. Martin Robinson Delaney, he's the one who came up with the quote, "Africa for the Africans." This is before Marcus Garvey was born. Remember, Martin Delaney was the first black man admitted into Harvard Medical School. Now, W.E.B. Du Bois being given credit as the first black to get a doctorate from Harvard, but he wasn't the first one admitted. Major Dr. Martin Robinson Delaney is the first black man admitted into Harvard. This is during slavery. This is the 1850s. Du Bois not even born yet. And this black man is admitted into Harvard Medical. But guess what happens? The white students at Harvard Medical protest him being in the program. They said, we're not going to come back to class unless y'all get rid of him. So Harvard Medical expelled Martin Delaney on the protest of the white students. But he still went on to become a medical doctor. He became the first uniformed officer in the Civil War. First officer in the history of U.S. military was Major Dr. Martin Robinson Delaney. He co-edited the North Star newspaper with the Honorable Frederick Douglass, but they split because Douglass was what? Radical integrationist. Martin Delaney, Pan-Africanist. Martin Delaney said America will never accept the black man. So he split with Douglass and started re-editing his own paper, which was called The Mystery, because he was an early Mason. He was one of the early fathers of the Black Masonic movement as well. We don't know about Martin Delaney. America keeps him hidden. But guess where he was the last time I saw him? On a Super Bowl commercial. This past Super Bowl, the pregame, they showed a picture of Martin Delaney in the corner. Why did they show that? In my personal opinion, I believe that that was a signal from the U.S. government that they're paying attention to the Pan-African movement because it's the only threat to this. And they've said this themselves. There have been security documents that have stated the only threat to America's global interests is the organized political, economic, operational unity of Africans in Africa and Africans in America. They don't care about no Christianity. They don't care about no Islam, no Hebrew, no Moor, no Nawapian, none of that. Respect to everybody else. But the only threat to white supremacy is global Pan-African unity. And that's why Kwame Nkrumah, Patrice Lumumba, Sekou Touré, Amilcar Cabral, Dedan Kimathi, and all the great Pan-Africanists of Africa, we hold them up, not just the one on this soil. But getting back to your question, Pan-Africanism predates Marcus Garvey's birth, which is 1887, okay, by over 100 years. Before Garvey, you had Henry Sylvester Williams, the first black man to use the word Pan-African. Before Garvey, you got Martin Delaney, as I mentioned. Before Garvey, you got Henry Highland Garnett, the first black man to give a speech in front of the U.S. Congress. This before Garvey. Alexander Crummell, who built the first intellectual society for black men. Okay, he's before Garvey. Edward Wilmot Blyden, who came to America from the Caribbean islands to get a seminary degree, but because of racism, he was rejected. He goes to Liberia, ends up becoming Secretary of State in Liberia. So no, by no means is Pan-Africanism living it to Garvey, but Garvey is the greatest of them all. Okay, you see that? Michael Jordan did not invent basketball. He became the greatest of them all. Garvey became the greatest of them all. And why is that? Why is Garvey greater than any Pan-Africanist before him and any Pan-Africanist after him? Because Garvey did what none of them could do. He gave Pan-Africanism a worldwide movement of 13 million people on every continent, every major country, in every major city, raising a red, black, and green flag all at one time and saying, we are African. It was never done before Garvey. It was never done since Garvey. The Honorable Marcus Garvey put ships on the water to build a global international distribution network for African people. Never been done before Garvey. No black leader has tried to do it since Garvey. Marcus Garvey is the only leader to give us a mass global organization without the need to exploit black people's religious beliefs. Everybody after Garvey gave you a religion. Islam, Christianity, Hebrew, this, that. Garvey didn't have to do that. The Garvey movement was based on African consciousness, African culture, and African liberation. No religion.
I want to read an excerpt from this book. It says, the rich Negro is not philanthropic to his race. And excuse me if I said that word wrong. Y'all know I don't know how to read. But he does not proportionally give to or help his racial institutions as the white people of wealth do. People like a Rhodes or Rockefeller or any other rich white person will create foundations, schools of research and science, clinics, hospitals, or scholarships, but the Negro will prefer subscribing or donating to these white institutions to show off rather than do for his own race. Now, I'm not gonna lie, when I first read this, it did make me think about like the thoughts or opinions you got on Deion Sanders. 'Cause he left, HBCU to go to a PWI and coach football. But when it says the rich Negro is not philanthropic to his race, he does not proportionally give to or help his racial institutions. Is that something you agree with?
Absolutely. And he wrote that over 100 years ago. And to give you the backstory in the Philosophy and Opinions, when Marcus Garvey was arrested on fake charges of using the U.S. mails to defraud investors in connection with the Black Star Line steamships. And by the way, J. Edgar Hoover got his first job in the Bureau of Investigation. It wasn't even called FBI yet. It was just Bureau of Investigation. J. Edgar Hoover was given his first job to infiltrate and destroy Garvey. That's his first job. The first full-time black undercover agent was hired to infiltrate and destroy the Garvey movement. That book that you're reading from was compiled by Marcus Garvey's wife, Queen Mother Amy Jakes Garvey. She collected all of Garvey's writings, all of Garvey's speeches, and put it into that book to raise money for his trial to try to get him out of jail. So had it not been for him getting arrested, and had it not been for Queen Mother Amy Jakes Garvey compiling all of his writings and speeches, we would not even know that about Garvey. So that's the backstory. But getting back to your point, he's 100% correct. Look at all the billionaires we got. I just named some of them. Can you name a single institution, relevant institution, not a barbershop, not a restaurant? Nothing against barbershops and restaurants. We need them. But nobody's not going to die if they don't eat at a restaurant or get their hair cut. You understand? The critical institutions are the banks, the supermarkets, the hospitals, the schools, the manufacturing and the distribution. Every people needs those. Like Garvey said, when you go to the European race, they finance each other. You go to the Mexicans, they finance each other. You go to the Arabs and the Chinese, they finance each other. They're rich people finance the people on the bottom. You don't see that in Black America. I just saw an interview where somebody was talking to a European Jew. You know what he said? He said, the reason Jewish people celebrate their billionaires is because they know when one of us becomes a billionaire, several of them are going to become millionaires automatically. You see that? If he's rich, I know I'm getting a piece of it. So the wealth of one is automatically the wealth of all. You don't get that in Black America. Jay-Z's money is Jay-Z's money. LeBron's money is LeBron money. Oprah Winfrey, the richest woman in the history of the North American continent, black or white, Oprah hasn't built a single institution in America for black people. Nothing would be more embarrassing than if Oprah Winfrey leaves this earth. And I wish nothing on her because I love the sister. But when she goes to her ancestors, she's going to leave probably one of the biggest estates in human history. And you never use none of that money for your people during your lifetime. All these celebrities we got, they don't do nothing. What are we celebrating right now? 50 years of hip hop. This whole year has been a celebration of 50 years of hip hop, and nobody has had a conversation yet. Has hip hop benefited the black community? Overall, has this been a plus or has this been a minus? Now let's go to the institutions. Hip hop is the most influential musical form in the world right now. 50 years. It is a multi-billion-dollar industry, of course, dominated by European Jews. But yet and still, many of these artists are very wealthy. Not a single institution has come from hip hop in 50 years. Am I supposed to ignore that? Am I supposed to act like these young brothers out here who pushing death and destruction, sexual exploitation and miscegenation of black women, these young brothers who out here pushing drug selling, going to jail, and everything possibly illegal to children, I'm supposed to believe that this was a blessing to the black community when you brainwashing our kids, and on top of the brainwash, on top of the toxic content, you don't even come back to the community and do anything good for it except give out some damn turkeys and sneakers. Are you kidding me? With the type of money that hip hop has generated around the world, there should be at least 25 Black Wall Streets in America right now. Chicago should have a Black Wall Street. LA should have a Black Wall Street. Atlanta should have a Black Wall Street. Memphis should have a Black Wall Street. Milwaukee should have a Black Wall Street. Little Rock should have a Black Wall Street with all the money that these gangster rappers are making, and yet and still they do nothing for their people. That is what Garvey is talking about.
Yeah, and you would think after all that we done been through, that will come a day in which we'll unite some way, you know?
No, and I'm going to tell you why.
Yeah.
Because it takes love to unite. It takes anger to react. Trayvon Martin, we reacted. Michael Brown, we reacted. Breonna Taylor, we reacted. Philando Castile, we reacted. Sandra Bland, we reacted. Tommy Rice, we reacted. Dante, Amir, we reacted. And we needed to. Rebellions are important. You understand? Riots are important. Revolutions are better. You know why we never get to the point of revolution? Because in order for that rebellion and that riot to become a revolution, the people involved must be committed spiritually to the liberation of their people. A riot and a rebellion is nothing more than a temporary temper tantrum. It's a temporary temper tantrum. That's not going to change nothing. You need revolution, sustained activity. But the problem is, black people are not motivated by love. We're motivated by anger. And that's why you only see us get political when white people piss us off. If white people ain't pissing us off, we could care less what white people do to us. But when you piss us off, like taking the life of one of our loved ones, which should piss us off, the point that I'm making, before they killed your loved one, we should have already been police in our own community so nobody has to call 911 in the first place. You see how that goes? See, love, when you love your people, you build and do for them before there's a crisis. You see how that goes? When you've taken care of your child, you educate them because you know they're going to need it later. You feed them because you know if you don't, they will get sick later. You're going to teach them who they are because if you don't, they're going to be brainwashed later. Because you love that child, what do? You solve problems before they even show up. Black America never solves problems before they even show up because you need love to solve a problem before it even shows up, and we don't have enough of it.
I agree.
DJ, you go crazy.